Hi everybody. I want to talk about this week's announcement just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit different than we usually do, where I present you with some text to read and some really awesome resources, and then I provide a very specific topical video. I'm going to save the topical videos for a little later on in the week because we have a lot of information to cover, and I kind of want to touch base with all of them because there are a lot of really key concepts that are going to support our success as we continue through this module, okay? Alright, hey look, how meta is that we're watching the video that I'm posting right now. Alright, first of all I want to say you guys are doing awesome work. This has been a great term so far. The work that you're doing towards that critical analysis is showing great depth and great insight and exceptional critical thinking. You guys are doing spectacular. I do want to remind you that it is very serious for us to consider our audience, who we're writing for, and you guys are all doing great with that. And remember, we want to think outside of the little box of our classroom here to who else might be reading our work, who else might be interested besides me and you to read this. So as we start developing more academic writing towards our critical analysis, let's make sure that we're writing for that audience. If you have any questions on who you're writing for or how to write specifically for them, let me know and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Alright, I also want to mention that we need to remember that our critical analysis focuses on the author and how the author is presenting their argument, not necessarily the topic that the author is talking about. We do want to indicate whether or not we agree with what they're saying, but we really don't want to add to the conversation in regards to that topic. We don't want to argue whether or not it's better to go into factory work or whether or not we need to have gender-neutral terms. We want to talk about how successful McFadden or Braxma was in getting you to believe their argument. So keep that in mind as you're exploring the critical analysis and thinking about the rubric and how you're going to want to present your argument. And as we move forward, remember that we want to focus our goal and our intent on how the author is communicating, not strictly on what the author is communicating about. Alright, this week we're going to be talking about a couple different things, including quotations, paraphrasing, and summarizing, as well as integrating our sources and how to avoid plagiarism as well. Additionally, you're going to be taking a quiz this week on whether you will be using MLA or APA. And after this quiz, we want to make sure that we are writing our papers to fit either MLA or APA. And we do have some information in this announcement, but also in coming announcements throughout the week and the term. There'll be some exceptional resources on MLA and APA. I want you to keep in mind that as you start writing in these doc styles officially, these writing styles, I'm happy to review any of your content before you submit it to make sure that you're fitting MLA and APA standards. I do ask, though, that if you're going to take advantage of that offer, to send me anything via email by Friday, because I can't guarantee that I'll have time over the weekend to give you a free ungraded review of the content that you're submitting on Sunday and allow you to have time to fix those concerns over the weekend. So if you want me to take a look at your paper, let's send it to me via email by Friday, okay? And let me know if you have any questions with that. Alright, this week we're talking about the incubation period, and what that is when we write something, it's often really good practice to just kind of write it, submit it, and take a step back and not actively think about it for a week. Just let it kind of muse back here in the back of your head, so to speak. Doing so allows us to restart the process with a fresh perspective in a week or two. For us, it's going to be next week. We'll get back to writing our critical analysis. But this week, we're going to focus on learning some skills to support that critical analysis and not necessarily consider actively anyways revisions or anything like that. Just set it back there, think about it from time to time, ruminate on what we're doing, and then in a week, we'll get back to writing. And I encourage you to do this incubation period for any big paper writing thing that you do, because it really lets you come back at it with a fresh approach. This week we're talking about quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. These are ways that we use evidence to support our opinion, our goal in that final paper, or in any paper really, that you use. You're going to integrate evidence using quotations, paraphrasing, or summarizing. Now, quotations is when you use a direct quote, when you literally copy something out of that essay to support what you're saying. For instance, because remember I'm doing the McFadden essay, I would do something in terms of a direct quotation like McFadden states, comma, direct quotation, so states so pervasive is the neutering of the English language that we no longer have people hear only persons. Now the thing about direct quotations that I want you to remember are you need to have those quotation marks in there. If you don't, it's plagiarism. Okay, so if you directly copy anything out of your essay to support your point, you want to put quotation marks around it. And additionally, we don't want to do a ton of direct quotations because I want to hear you. You want to be able to have your audience hear you and not rely solely on direct quotations to support, to say what you're saying. Use it to support what you're saying. Okay. Another way to use evidence is paraphrasing. And what paraphrasing is essentially taking a statement and putting it in your own words. Okay, so instead of saying direct quote, so pervasive, etc., we're going to put that phrase in our own words. And the way we could do this, for example, is saying something like McFadden claims so many people are overly careful of the genderization of their words, we now only have persons rather than men or women. Now, it says essentially that the meaning is the same as that direct quotation, but we put it in my own words. And the thing to remember about paraphrasing is even if it's not a direct quotation, which paraphrasing is not, it's putting it in your own words, you still need to have a citation to support the intellectual property and your own academic honesty. Okay, so even if you paraphrase, we need to have a citation in there to support that. Now, summarization is a summary of the main idea. It goes a little bit, a little bit more broad than a paraphrasing would be. It's where you have the general idea of a paragraph or of the article itself. For instance, the general idea McFadden presents seems to be her belief gender-neutral terms are unnecessary, cumbersome, and not a little ridiculous when used in real-world scenarios. That's the main idea, right? That's a summary of that article. And again, just like with direct quotations and paraphrasing, you need to have a citation crediting McFadden or whoever your author is to support their intellectual property and your own academic honesty. And then under Let's Explore, of course, there are some additional resources supporting and detailing quotation, paraphrasing, and summarizing with some excellent examples and practice activities. Now, we want to talk about plagiarism just a little bit. Plagiarism can happen intentionally or accidentally in academic writing. And much of our activities this week will be used to support integrating our sources and citing them to prevent plagiarism. Okay. Essentially, plagiarism can happen three ways. You can use exact words from an essay in your own writing without putting quotation marks around them. If you do that, it's plagiarism. So let's make sure that we put those quotation marks around it and give them a citation, okay, to support the idea that you are directly taking this from that content. Put in quotation marks to indicate it's not your own words. Put a citation in there to say, hey, McFadden wrote this, okay? And then using ideas is another way, even using ideas when you paraphrase them without including that citation, okay? So even if you put it in your own words, but the idea comes from that source, you need to put a citation in there. And then finally, using ideas or structures from an essay without acknowledging that you're doing so. That's like with the main idea with summarizing. If you don't put a citation in there indicating that that big idea is not your own, it's plagiarizing. So essentially what you want to do is put a citation in anytime you are doing something, using something, direct quote, paraphrasing, or even summarizing. You want to put a citation in there, and it is absolutely essential that anytime you copy something directly from an article, you put those quotation marks around it, okay? If you have any questions on whether or not you're plagiarizing on purpose or accidentally, just let me know. I'll be happy to clarify for you. Post on the discussion forums, or you can even contact the SNHU Online Writing Center, and they can support you with that as well. And again, under Let's Explore, there are some really cool resources in here to indicate how much can you paraphrase before it's plagiarism, what are some safe practices, and then some activities to practice not plagiarizing. And MindEdge as well has a bunch of activities this week to support not plagiarizing. Okay, so essentially the key thing about plagiarism is make sure you're using your citations. All right. And then we're also talking about integrating sources. And this is especially important for direct quotations. All right, you can't just drop a direct quotation in your prose as its own sentence. And remember, when I say prose, I mean your own writing. You can't just put a quotation in there and not connect it to your own writing. We need to integrate it. And we integrate it by using what we call lead-in phrases. They're also known as anchoring or signaling phrases. And these phrases you've seen before. They're like, according to Rowan, or the author McFadden states, or Tan seems to believe. They are lead-in phrases that indicate to your audience, hey, I'm about to use a direct quote, or I'm about to use an idea that's not my own. So we want to make sure that we're using these signaling phrases. That's really, really important, all right? And under Let's Explore, there's a bunch of websites. There's actually 3 websites, that's not a bunch, that support this idea. We've got 2 websites that talk about for suggestions and tips on integrating sources, and then we have an additional website that just lists signaling phrases that you can integrate into your work. This ties in nicely with our decision on whether or not we're using MLA or APA, because both of them have different approaches to integrating our sources, and we'll talk a little bit about that with the examples that we have here in Purdue OWL and the SNHU resources that they have. And also in the midweek announcement, we're going to really explore how to integrate our sources. Alright, so there's a lot of stuff that we're talking about this week, and if you have any questions at all, you can of course contact me, go on the discussion boards, but I also encourage you to kind of explore the SNHU Learning Center, the OWC, and also the Shapiro Library. That Ask a Librarian function is really great when we're talking about citations and integrating sources. The librarian will be happy to help you with that as well. And we have a lot of activities to do this week, and some of them are required, the graded ones, and some of them are highly, highly, highly encouraged and for you to use. We've got a couple readings talking about the incubation period, quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing, integrating sources, all that stuff that we touched on. But then after the last reading, 4-8, reading APA and MLA style guides, we have the actual style guides broken down in MindEdge, and they will take you through step by step. Well, how do I format that cover page? How do I put a heading in? When do I use a direct quote? How do I cite a paraphrased piece of content? These guides were going to be super supportive in explaining these doc styles, these writing styles to you. So I strongly encourage that you not only review them, but maybe take notes. There's a couple videos that you can watch that will really break down how to format your papers now. And do the activities that it's suggesting that you do, because it's going to help in the long run if you're familiar with how these writing styles work. Okay, so I encourage you to really take advantage of the activities that we have in MindEdge. And then, of course, make sure that we are managing our time to get our graded content done. And remember, you guys got this. You can do it. It's going to be awesome. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. All right, good luck. You don't need luck. You guys are going to do great.